Shifting gears, dozens of African leaders converge in Kuwait for the Africa-Arab Summit. Are they turning their back on traditional Western allies? UN now prepares to redeploy peacekeepers to CAR. And protesters gather in Cairo to mark the second anniversary of deadly clashes near Tahrir Square. It is 1 p.m. in East Africa and you're watching Africa Live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Penina Kariba. Let's have a look at what's more to come this half hour. A new technology that brings internet through the TV spectrum is raising hopes for rural connectivity in Africa. And Ghana remains upbeat ahead of the World Cup playoff against Egypt. African and Arab leaders are meeting in Kuwait for a two-day summit. The main aim is to review steps to promote economic ties between Gulf and African states. It will be the first meeting since 2010 when leaders met in Libya before the unrest that swept the region. The summit in Libya adopted an Africa-Arab partnership strategy and a 2011 to 2016 joint action plan to increase investment, trade and other joint economic projects. But implementation has been slow, partly because of the turmoil generated by the 2011 Arab unrest. In Kuwait, the leaders are expected to discuss a proposal by the Africa-Arab Economic Forum to create an Arab-African common market for a combined population of around 1.2 billion people. They will also approve a resolution to set up an Africa-Arab joint financial mechanism to provide the means for implementing projects and encouraging investment. Also for discussion will be the establishment of an Africa-Arab Technical and Coordination Committee on Migration to help protect migrant workers. And ahead of the third African-Arab Summit in Kuwait, Somalia's foreign minister has been meeting with Arab leaders to woo them into investing and supporting Somalia. Fazia Haji Yusuf met with Egyptian foreign minister who pledged cooperation between the two countries in security and development. Early this year, Egypt re-established ties with Somalia after a delegation led by Egyptian Foreign Minister Mohammed Kamel Amr met top Somali leaders in Mogadishu. The Africa-Arab Summit in Kuwait is expected to kickstart new investments and cooperation between Africa and the Arab world.
We've talked about issues on support on the health sector, training of the force and cooperation on revitalizing other vital institutions. We've also talked about bilateral and diplomatic cooperations between our two countries.
We focused on improving relations between Somalia and Egypt. We know Somalia's first embassy was opened in Cairo in 1960, so we have a historic relationship with Egypt. It's a country that's always supported us, so we're seeking to improve our cooperation.
The United Nations is preparing to possibly deploy peacekeepers to the troubled Central African Republic. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon announced on Monday that if the crisis there worsens quickly before such a force is ready, it could redeploy troops from nearby UN missions. There is currently a 2,500-strong regional peacekeeping force in Central African Republic that was deployed by the Economic Community of Central African States. Ban said the African Union is due to take charge of that force in December and boost its size to 3,600 troops. The landlocked, mineral-rich nation of 4.6 million people has slipped into chaos since Northern Seleka rebels seized the capital Bangui in March and ousted President Francois Bozize. Meanwhile, residents of the capital Bangui have been speaking out on their ordeal. A rebellion 8 months ago has plunged the country into chaos. Many people say they feel the world has turned its back on them. This report from CCTV's Robert Nagila.
Take a camera and a microphone on many streets in Africa and people shy away. Not in Bangui, though. Residents are desperate to talk.
We're just alive by God's grace. If God did not want it, we would all have passed away by now.
When I offer to hide their faces for fear of reprisals, The response is the same.
We want to talk about it so that people can hear us and know what is happening.
Seleka rebels toppled the government back in March. Almost overnight, this nation of 4 million became a failed state. The health service has collapsed, schooling is on its knees, and the economy is at a standstill.
I lost my job after my boss fled when the Seleka arrived. Now it is difficult to provide for my family.
They said they will pay salaries regularly. My father has not been paid for 2 months. I can't afford to go to school.
There has been widespread looting. That's only tapered off now because there's little left to steal. Robbery, kidnapping and murder are widespread. Sexual violence too.
I sell cakes to help put food on my family's table. Sometimes the Seleka rebels take my cakes without paying. When I ask for money, they tell me they will undress me and rape me.
Every time they come to my neighborhood, I keep fleeing into the bush with my children. Now one of them has malaria.
It's 6 months during that those guys are here. There is nothing work in the country. Everything is bad. So school, security, everything is bad.
Their feelings are best summed up by a homeless teenager.
According to me, there's no hope for this country because the president and the Seleka are all bad people. I don't like them.
Despite the insecurity in the city, it is relatively safe. In the countryside where atrocities have been committed on a large scale, the state has ceased to exist. The international community, CAR's neighbors, have been promising to help. But to the people here, those words mean very little. Survival is all that counts. Robert Nagelo, CCTV, Bangui, Central African Republic.
All right, let's revisit our lead story this hour on the African and Arab leaders that are meeting in Kuwait for a 2-day summit. The main aim is to review steps to promote economic ties between Gulf and African states. And this will be the first meeting since 2010 when leaders met in Libya. That was before the unrest swept the region. Let's discuss this issue further. Zaid Akil is a senior analyst and researcher with the Al Ahram Center for Strategic Studies in Egypt. He joins us live from Cairo. Mr. Akil, thank you for being with us. Now, the last Africa-Arab summit was held in Libya, like I said, in 2010. What has been achieved since then?
Excuse me?
Mr. Akil, can you hear us?
I didn't hear that question. Yes, I can hear you. Can you
well, just saying that the last Africa-Arab summit was held back in 2010 in Libya, and wondering what has been achieved since then.
Well, since then, actually, the whole region has been in very heavy transition, and we have to ask ourselves if there was actually some kind of scope where something could have been achieved. So far, there are so many challenges in each of the Arab countries that are facing transitions, even the ones that did not witness direct revolutions or direct collective actions, like Morocco, for example, and Jordan are also facing transitions. There are so many barriers to any cooperation that could have been achieved in these past 2 years, and this is why pretty much in 2013 we are one way or the other almost in the same place as we were in 2010.
Now, one of the main issues being discussed in this meeting is creating an Africa-Arab joint market of about 1.2 billion people. Is this achievable?
Well, I think it very much depends on a lot of the rate of political stability in the region, but it could be achievable if the right amount of investments are actually politically guarded and ensured security and stability.
All right, let's leave it there for now. Mr. Zayed Akil joining us live from Cairo. Thank you very much for your time. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a break coming up. Protesters gather in Cairo to mark the second anniversary of deadly clashes near Tahrir Square.
We follow the latest trends in global politics, economics, culture and sport, and how Africa fits into the global picture. You decide what's important.
We need some trade and justice.
Africa's future will be determined by Africa.
For women's equal opportunity, for a better life.
We have to change something, and it's not the outsiders.
Talk Africa, a new voice for the world.
Take you to Somalia, where there are reports of a huge explosion in Beledweyne, south central of Somalia. Suicide bombers attacked the central police station of the town, where AMISOM police are based. Witnesses say the attack is similar to the courthouse complex and UNDP attacks in Mogadishu. CCTV correspondent Mohammed Hirmoge says there were 7 suicide attackers involved in the incident, but only one blew himself up. It is believed that the rest of the attackers are inside the police station, and unconfirmed reports indicate that at least 10 people have been killed in that incident. Mohammed Hirmoge is now live for us in Mogadishu. Mohammed, what is the latest?
Well, Penina, the attackers blew up the gate of the police station with a vehicle-borne IED before advancing further with machine guns and shooting. The target, according to Al-Shabaab, who actually claimed responsibility, were Djiboutian forces who are part of the African Union peacekeeping mission in some central Somalia's Beledweyne region. That is the administrative capital of the region called Hiran in central Somalia. Right now, unconfirmed reports say only 10 have been killed, but we also understand, according to sources and witnesses in Beledweyne, that the attackers have been 7, all of them wearing suicide vests, and one blew himself up. That has been corroborated by an Al-Shabaab spokesman who spoke to part of the media, has been quoted by the media largely right now. And as the situation stands, it's not under control. According to police, both of Beledweyne, the station is under control. According to Al-Shabaab spokesman, the attackers still holding the siege.
All right, a developing situation there indeed. Mohammed, thank you very much for this insight. Mohammed Hirmoge, live for us in Mogadishu. Now, thousands are set to march in Cairo to mark the second anniversary of deadly clashes near Tahrir Square. Several political groups have called for demonstrations. Security forces have evacuated the streets in the Egyptian capital. CCTV's Adel Mahri has more.
The banners read, "Restricted to revolutionaries, no brotherhood military or Mubarak's remnants allowed." And this is Egypt's border with the occupied Tahrir Square state. 2 years on from the Mohammed Mahmoud clashes, many are still angry.
Unfortunately, 3 years have passed since the revolution and we are still calling for the same demands. We still want to restructure the Interior Ministry. We still want vengeance for those who killed the protesters in Mohammed Mahmoud. We will never give up.
On Monday, the government installed a memorial in Tahrir Square to those who have died since Mubarak's fall.
This foundation is to unify all our martyrs in Mohammed Mahmoud, Tahrir, everywhere, whether they are protesters, police or army men. This celebration is for all, and the memorial is the least we can do to make their spirits immortal.
But just a few hours later, protesters broke it down.
This is a message for the government. We tell them that the martyrs' family and the injured don't want this memorial. They want their rights, medical care, job opportunities, and housing. These are the things that matter.
2 years ago today, protesters marched to demand reform. Their target was the nearby Interior Ministry. Several days of clashes followed, in which 38 were killed, many suffocated by tear gas. and around 4,000 were injured, many blinded by buckshots fired at a close range. Several groups participated, but not the Muslim Brotherhood. The Islamist movement went on to win elections that continued to 2012, only to be overthrown earlier this year. That move triggered more bloody protests in Cairo.
Islamic powers focused on the parliament elections that were a week later and abandoned the January demands. This memorial here is not only to remember the victims, but to remind Egyptians when they first became divided. Adel Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
Top Chinese legislator Chang Dejiang on Monday held talks with visiting Cote d'Ivoire Parliamentary Speaker Guillaume Soro. Chang, chairman of the National People's Congress Standing Committee, reviewed the smooth growth relations since the two countries forged diplomatic ties in 1983. He cited increasing trade and economic collaboration and robust exchanges in cultural and regional cooperation. Chang said China places great importance on developing bilateral ties and is a reliable and sincere friend of Cote d'Ivoire. China expressed strong interest in working with Cote d'Ivoire to deepen trade and economic cooperation and participate in the country's economic development. To Cameroon now, medics in the north of the country are battling a wave of malaria cases. More than 600 people have died in and around the city of Gouda in recent weeks. A team of Chinese doctors is on the front line of the fight to save lives. CCTV's Maria Galang tells us more.
A city that's home to more than 65,000 people. But the climate that means Gouda city is an ideal breeding ground for malaria. Now and over the last few decades, Cameroon's first president, Amadou Ahidjo, born in Garoua, about an hour's drive from Gouda city, saw the dire need of a hospital in the region to save the lives of patients who would have to travel long distances to receive care for malaria. The scourge continues today. This boy was lucky. An emergency case brought in during the night, and this doctor rushed in to treat him.
He was vomiting, not eating, and even slipped into a coma. We treated him immediately with anti-cerebral malaria medicine. Now he's so much better. I believe he can be discharged in 3 days.
Dr. Liu is part of a 9-strong Chinese medical team here, and this is known as the Chinese hospital. Teams of Chinese medics have been stationed at this hospital since 1976, part of a Pan-African medical cooperation program.
Donc, on peut dire que leur apport est donc très important.
The medical team's presence here is important. We're very short-staffed. We lack a lot of equipment too. Having 9 specialists here, therefore, really eases the burden we have.
Donc ça fait que ils font la majorité des spécialités.
Mosquito-borne malaria is Africa's biggest killer. But it's not the only challenge here. There are few staff and equipment often is in short supply. This is the Chinese pharmacy popularly known as the Pharmacie Chinoise, the heart of the hospital. Now, although there are 2 pharmacies located within the hospital, this one is much more popular with patients due to the medicines imported from China, like this one for malaria here and this one for burn victims. For team leader Wang Jianping, this is his second stint in Gouda. He first came out with another Chinese team in 1992.
My first experience with the medical team was from 1992 to 1994 in the same hospital in Gouda. I was still young, only 30 years old, the youngest in my team then. Here, I have some photos that date back 20 years ago. This one was taken in my dorm in June 1993. This is a group photo of the 6th batch team.
When he heard of an opportunity to return to Gouda, he couldn't resist.
I came back again because of some unforgettable experience 20 years ago. Then I was also driving for the team. One day, my car broke down on the road. At that time, 7 or 8 person vehicles just stopped and offered help. I was deeply touched and realized that real friendship is borderless.
He has forged friendships that have survived the years and make the work here far more than just a job. And even though the medical team here lost one of their members to a road accident, they continue to soldier on to ensure the mission in Guida is fulfilled. Maria Galang, CCTV, Guida, North Cameroon.
Malaria is the #1 killer in Africa, with around 1 million people dying of it every year, mostly children under 5 years of age. To fight malaria in Africa, the Chinese government adopted several measures simultaneously through training programs, free facilities and drugs.
中非合作论坛向下，咱们在非洲设立了不少这个抗体中心。
China has set up many anti-malaria centers in Africa, as proposed at the China-Africa Cooperation Forum. These anti-malaria centers have been working quite well. On one hand, China offers medicine and facilities. On the other hand, it sends experts for training local medical specialists across Africa. This year, Cameroon has received a second batch of Chinese experts who came from an assignment in Equatorial Guinea and now to Cameroon and then DR Congo.
You're watching Africa Live, and coming up in Biz News. A new technology that brings internet through the TV spectrum is raising hopes for rural connectivity in Africa. Africa is the world's largest or last major untapped market as far as the internet access is concerned. Barely 2 out of every 10 people have an internet connection, and that's half the penetration rate in Asia, according to the International Telecommunication Union. A project to set up fast wireless connection via unused parts of the TV spectrum known as white spaces is part of efforts to change that. CCTV's Jitu Abraham has this story.
Gikau Secondary School in Nanyuki, Kenya, a few hours outside of the capital city of Nairobi, has made a major technological leap. Just 8 months ago, this school, in a small market town, had no electricity. But today, thanks to solar power, they do. The institution can now claim more than a dozen online computers thanks to an innovative project called White Spaces. The pilot project, run by Microsoft, the Kenyan government, and local internet service provider Indigo Telecom, has seen day-to-day learning transformed through the use of high-speed wireless broadband.
It has helped me to do revision work. When we didn't have computers, I was not able to come and copy some questions from the computers, but now I'm able to copy and be able to revise well.
Currently providing free internet to schools, Indigo plans to start charging those in the area $1.50 US per month to connect to the internet.
We would want these people to have access to Microsoft services, devices, and not just for the benefit of Microsoft, for the benefit of the community at large, including the ability for governments to provide services to the citizens, for students to have access to technology for educational purposes, and so on. And so when they approached us with the idea, we thought that it was a very interesting, disruptive technology that gave us the opportunity to kind of change the game in as far as access to affordable technology is concerned.
The project provides free wireless connection through the unused parts of TV spectrum known as white spaces. Television networks leave idle gaps between channels in order to protect themselves from interference from other networks. The technology uses these white spaces to transmit and receive wireless data signals.
We believe in it from 2 ways, right? So the first way is the role that technology has to play in terms of bringing real socioeconomic development to the people on the continent. But the second thing is the role that Africans have to play in terms of their impact on technology built by Africans for Africans to be consumed within Africa and in the rest of the world at large as well. And so from a Microsoft perspective, we see the real value in terms of the amazing content, amazing products, amazing access to information, resources, education, learning through and powered by our technology. That's where opportunity lies for us.
The adapted TV radio wave can travel up to 10-kilometer radius, making them ideal for connecting off-grid villages. They penetrate walls better than mobile signals and are cheap to provide. Most of Africa connects to the internet via their mobile phones, making internet more accessible and pushing broadband usage on the continent from 2% in 2010 to 11% currently. The use of white spaces aims to significantly raise these numbers, and Microsoft, as well as Google, are chasing this massive new market. G2 Abraham, CCTV.
The West African Development Bank marked its 40th anniversary with renewed commitment to supporting efforts aimed at food security. In a ceremony in Lome, Togo, the bank said that modernizing agriculture and exploitation of 65% of arable land that is yet to be cultivated would receive particular focus. The bank was created on 14th November 1973 following a regional agreement of the West African Economic and Monetary Union countries. It aims to promote the economic integration of West Africa by financing priority development projects. The anniversary celebrations were witnessed by 4 heads of state: Benin's Yahya Boni, Niger's Mahamadou Issoufou, Mali's Ibrahim Boubacar, and Togo's Faure Gnassingbé.
This 40th birthday is the time for maturity for us, the time to think about what we have achieved and what more we can do. We can now think about how to do things better. We do not only finance the public sector, but the private sector as well. At first, the West African Development Bank was just for the 8 West African countries. Now we have China, India, the European Union, and will carry on expanding our activities.
This is a very big project, and we could see it with the fact that 4 African presidents attended the celebration in Lome. 40 years of hard work and working together, this is very good and important for the region.
For Guinea-Bissau, it is very important to attend the 40th birthday of the West African Development Bank. We are a small country, and we also need to be integrated into the West African Economic and Monetary Union. It will help a lot to develop our economy.
Look at those numbers in early trade so far. The Nigerian all-share index so far in the green with almost 0.5%. The JSE all-share index trading so far in the of a securities exchange. Let's have a look at those numbers there in the percent, and finally the EGX so far trading in the green, almost there by 0.25%. Ghana coach Kwesi Appiah says he has told his side to forget about their 5-goal advantage over Egypt and approach Tuesday's World Cup playoff second leg as though they are behind. The Black Stars cruised to a 6-1 victory in the first leg in Kumasi last month, virtually securing their qualification for next year's tournament in Brazil. Appiah has been boosted by the return of fit again Kevin Prince Boateng and Harrison Afful, who was suspended for the first game. Egypt will have to produce one of the greatest comebacks in football history if they are to overcome Ghana. They have home advantage in Cairo and will have their fans in attendance for the first time in almost 2 years following the Portside riots and the ousting of President Morsi. Well, let's leave it there for now. Thanks for watching Africa Live and stay in touch with us. Our Twitter handle is @CCTV News Africa, and also visit our Facebook page, CCTV Africa. I'm Penina Kariba. See you later.